I'm Nick.
I'm Michael.
Gina.
Hayward.
Tass.
Chris. Tom.
Jacinta. Shakti.
Sharky. Saroja.
Cole.
Peter.
Dean.
Josh.
And Mo.
That's this one.
Yes, darling, thank you.
Take the listeners out. Well, all know what we point to here, what they call in the scriptures or text Advaita. Advaita translates as non-duality, not two, one without a second. That is all there is. Presence awareness. Anyone who is not present, anyone who is unaware, and you realise, no, I'm present, I'm here, I'm not unaware. So, wouldn't that point out that you're already that? Because that is all there is. The one essence that patterns, shapes, forms, expresses and experiences and everything. And that's the great mantra, I am that. And what's the I am? I am is the sense of presence. Each one of you knows I am. But I am Bill, I am Betty, I am Jane, I am John. Whatever label we put on it, we break it up into these beliefs that we are individuals, separate entities, persons. As I tell you in Isaiah, in the Bible, be still and know. Be still and know that I am is God. If you like to use that term, God. Everything, and you and I are things, the chair's a thing, the table's a thing, the sky's a thing. Everything is that. That's Advaita. The one without the second. So what's the problem? The problem is we've taken ourselves to be these persons, these individuals, these separate entities. But that needs to be investigated. And I tell you also that the false cannot stand up to investigation. So we've got these false concepts and beliefs. Have we investigated them? Really looked into them? When I look into it and investigate it, I can recognise and see clearly that I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not this person, or separate entity, an individual. I am the Absolute. Because they tell you in the great text of scriptures that there is only the Absolute. What can be added to the Absolute? Nothing whatsoever. What can be separated from the absolute? Nothing. It wouldn't be absolute if you get anything to it. It wouldn't be absolute if you can take anything away from it. But that sense of presence, the I amness, that's what the sense of presence is, that sense of presence of being present and aware right now. Not the person you're talking about, not the body, mind, the entity, but the presence itself, the awareness of presence. They call it Satchitananda Nama Rupa. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is loving to be, and the other two factors, Nama Rupa, Nama is the name we've been given, and Rupa is the form, the body-mind. And I tell you that body-mind, Nama Rupa, is Maya. It's illusion. It only appears to be so. Appearance means it's seemingly so. And that's what needs to be investigated. We take the seemingness, because it's been reinforced and we've never investigated, we take the seemingness to be real. But it's only appearing or seeming to be so. This means that you, I, and everything else is the great reality. And the Buddhists tell you that the great reality is non-conceptual awareness. It's that awareness without any concepts, without any thoughts, concepts, ideas or images. And Satchitananda is existence. You're existing right now. You're not unconscious. You're not unaware. And you're happy to be. So there it is. What is awareness? What is it? A knowing that you are. That knowing translates through the thought or the concept, I am. I am is that sense of being present and aware. So it's not a matter of becoming or practicing this or practicing that to become something. Try and negate your beingness right now. You call yourself a human being. Believe in God or some higher power, you call it a supreme being or God. Well, take away that label, supreme. Take away that label, human. Without any labels to you. Are you unaware right now, without any labels? Are you not being? And you realise, yes, I am being. I can't negate that beingness. And do I need the labels, all the concepts? In the livingness, some of the words can become very useful, but that's also can be very self-destructive, because the word tells me I'm unhappy, I'm fearful, nobody loves me, or I'm not good enough. All these concepts and labels I put myself. All this psychological suffering comes up because of the belief in these words. I've got this continual conceptualizing going on, which is continually causing problems. Now have a look at these words and recognise how many words were you born with. And you realise you weren't born with any words. You didn't have any words till you were about 2.5. Might be a bit before if you were smart, or a bit later. But there was that period when there was no words. But you were still living. You're getting on all right without the word. Because you're still here, aren't you? And for the first couple of years before you learnt any words, you didn't have any words, but you were still seeing. You were hearing. You were tasting, touching, smelling. The functioning was going on, the breathing, the heart beating, the life was there without any words. Now have a look at these words. What are words? A word is a thing. Are the words the real? We'll take the word water. Can you drink the word? Can you swim in it? Can you wash in it? You drown in it? You can't. The word fire. Can you heat yourself with it? Can you burn yourself? Can you cook yourself? Cook with it? You can't. Now, all these words, when you investigate them, and remember what we said before, the false cannot stand up to investigation. When you're looking into them and see the words, not the real, what's this word I or me? Now we've added lots of other things to that I, that sense of presence, that I-ness. I am Bob, the Australian, the good fella, or not so good, or I'm unhappy, I'm fearful, all the story that's been added onto it. And all this psychological suffering comes up because the fear, anxiety, stress, unhappiness, depression, jealousy, envy, all these psychological suffering comes up because of the words. We put words on it all, describing what we believe to be the real, not realising that description can never be the described. So what we're describing right now even is not its description. The word is not the real. So we're describing something and using words and taking the words to be real and causing this conceptual image of this world and everything that's in it. Not realising what they tell us, and is that it's a phenomenal manifestation. The definition of phenomena is another word. Phenomena. The definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. So this world and everything in it appears to be so. It appears to be real. But investigate it and you'll see it's not real. So you're seeing right now, there is seeing going on, there is hearing, there is tasting, touching, smelling, feeling. All these words or concepts or labels we put on these sensations or feelings that come up. What's the word? Well, the word is just a sound, isn't it? Noise coming out of the mouth here, sound, which is then translated into word. But what's the sound? Sound's a vibration. And the vibration's a movement of energy. So these words are actually a movement of energy, which are taken to be the thing, rather than taken to be the thing as words, as concepts, since they're seeing them just as vibration, a movement of energy. It tells you in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. It's when it all seemingly begins, with the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. So we've got this concept and idea that there is such this thing called God, which is just a word. All things were made by Him, by the Word. And have a look around you. That's a chair you're sitting on, that's the carpet on the floor, that's the tree, that's the flower. Everything is, we've put labels on, is the Word. All the things, the space, the sky, the seasons, all words. All things were made by Him, by the Word. There was nothing made that was made. And what have we done? We've taken the Word to be real. Even the word God to be something which put a concept or idea on. But there is only, what they tell you in the scriptures, there's only this label or thing they call God. The one self, one Atman, one self. But we've got this idea, when they take this I am, that I am Bob, or I am Bill, or I am Jane, or Jane. We put the label we've been given, put it on it, and broken ourselves down from absolute into the pure, into the individual, the separate entity, the person. Now, person's just another word. And when it comes from, look it up, it comes from persona, ancient Latin persona meaning a mask. So when we believe we are this person, we've taken ourselves to be this conceptual image or mask. So we've broken ourselves down from the absolute into this separate entity, this individual. And with that sense of separation, isn't it isolation? We've isolated ourselves, divided ourselves from the absolute, the totality, where, as it says in the scriptures, everything is perfectly resolved in the unborn mind, where it resolves itself and understood. We've divided it and separated ourselves into separate and suffer accordingly. So now we are these seemingly so-called human beings which are having all these problems. And the problems can be seemingly real. The anxieties, the stresses, the guilt, the shame, remorse, the jealousy, the envy, all these words, concepts, which the energy of belief has been put into, and the definitions and meanings are put into them. And that causes all this psychological suffering to take place and be believed in. Now I am this separate entity, this individual that believes in all these concepts, and I'm fearful, I'm unhappy, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm jealous, I'm envious, violent, addictive, all sorts of concepts right onto it. And as it's seemingly conceptualized, so it appears to be so. wouldn't it be much better to recognise that I am that non-duality, absolute, one without a second, pure presence awareness, or pure being, pure knowing, pure being, that love of being? Being or knowing the truth, which they tell me in the scriptures, they say, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They're telling you you're in bondage, bound up, or you wouldn't need to be set free if you didn't believe you're in bondage, would you? If you know you are the Absolute, and you are the pure awareness, any one of you unaware right now, and you know you're not unaware right now, so you must be aware. Know that, that's the truth. What must you be free from? Will you be free from this conceptual image, this belief that I am this individual, I am this person, I am this separate entity? And what they say and what they tell me, that there is one essence, there's one awareness, that's what I really am. Recognise it. In the recognition, the recognising it, go back and relax into what I truly am. I am that. That is all there is. They also tell you that this manifestation is transient. Transience means change. And it's constantly changing. Isn't it? Have a look. Recognise that the same thoughts now you walked into this room with, the same sensations, the same feelings. Some of it might be there, but there's certainly a lot of it changed. Transient. We don't realise that, and we think it's static. And they call it unfixated awareness. They say, with a statement that goes with that, be utterly awake, with the five senses wide open. Five senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, thinking. Be open and alert, so each and every one of them can be experienced. And we don't do that, because we generally fixate on one, the feeling, the fear, the anxiety, the stress, the guilt, even though the others are there, but they're being ignored. Fixated on one to the exclusion of all the others. And when you look on that, fixating on the one sense, that's not truly living. It's only partially living. And when you're partially living, all this fear and insecurity and vulnerability and all the rest of it can raise its ugly head, and we focus into it and get latched onto certain parts of it and become fearful, anxious, depressed, guilty, angry. So be utterly open with unfixated awareness. Instead of being partial, open up to it all. So you're not only hearing, but you're seeing, tasting, touching, smelling. We can, instead of being fixated on the one to the exclusion of the others, whatever there comes up can be there and recognised and gone with. And there's an all-round sense of being and livingness comes in. Instead of being the isolated, static person, we're taking ourselves full of this fear or anxiety and stress and guilt, fixating on it and struggling with it, trying to become something. But becoming is not being. Becoming implies something you haven't got yet, but if you do something about it, you will become something. But don't they tell you it's being? It's not becoming, knowing and loving to be, it's being, knowing and loving to be. You are the beingness. But we've been closed off, or closed ourselves off from it, and lived from that position of isolation. And isolation is insecurity, separation, vulnerability. We need to question it and look. When we say becoming is time-bound, there's only being. And can't be anything other than being right now. So you'd never be a future time when you can become something, because have a look at this so-called concept of time. Time, as we think it is past, present and future. We'll have a look at that. Where's the past? Well, isn't the past yesterday, or last week, or last year, or even 5 minutes ago? Is that what's with you right now? Or are you present right now? And you realise the actuality is I am that presence awareness. And that past, it needs to be recalled. Or I don't know anything about it at all, it's gone. And have a look at that. And can you recall everything that went on yesterday, or what you were saying or thinking a couple of hours ago? If you can recall it, it means it's still available to be utilised right now. But if you can't recall it, it's gone for good. And what about the future? Well, you can anticipate and imagine. Or after I leave here, I've got to go to Sofia and go to eat a big meal, or a great big fat pizza or something like that. So the future hasn't arrived. Can only be anticipated and imagined. And if I'm not anticipating and imagining it, there's no such thing as a concept there at all. But can I be taken away from this presence? This presence is the spontaneous actuality that's going on right now. Isn't that so? Recognise it and see that is what you are, and it's always this, what they call omnipresence, total presence, omnipotence, total power, and omniscience, total intelligence. It's always this total immediacy, and they call that's another label for this God, if you like, omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience, the thing we believe and call God, a greater power. But that's the problem, we put greater on it. But if it's absolute, what can be added to the absolute? Can't add anything to it. It wouldn't be absolutely good. What can you take away from it? Nothing. It wouldn't be absolute. So nothing can be taken away from it. Nothing can be added to it. And you are the absolute, because that's just another label for what we call this God, if you like, absolute, great perfection. Italian Buddhism, the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Awareness without any concepts. And when we learnt words, what do? We put labels or concepts on them. And we've taken all these words, we've got different concepts, and they are what is separating us, separated by the words. Shakespeare told you that. He says there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Isn't that so? We're thinking this, thinking that, and it's either good, bad, pleasant, painful. What's the way you think? And see, it's always functioning dualistically in the pairs of opposites. All the words. And Nisargadatta tells you nothing can trouble you excepting your own imagination. What's that word, imagination? A word we've taken ourselves and say, I imagine this, or I imagine that. Break it down to imagine. Imagine. Or imagine means we're creating mental or conceptual images and taken the image to be real. You look in the mirror, there's a mirror at the back of the room there, have a look. What do you see in it? Don't you see reflections or images in? And that's all an image in. Image is a reflection or an image. So all your imagination is reflecting or images. All these thoughts, feelings, emotions are images we're creating or putting the energy of belief in them and the reality. Taking it to be real. Beating ourselves up with the word, with the concept. I just said the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. What happens if I drop the concepts? Don't fixate or attach to any of the concepts. Instead of taking them aboard, leave them as there is. Wouldn't that be like asking myself what is wrong with right now if I don't think about it? Well, have a look. What is wrong with right now if you don't think about it? Can you say it's good? Can you say it's bad? Can you say it's fearful or unhappy or depressing if I'm not putting the concept or the word on it? Isn't it just as it is? Present awareness, unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected, just as it is, not as it was or will be, but just as is. And what is the note? This immediacy, this presence, not the future or not the past. Everything is as is. Not was, but as. Was means it's past, but as is as it is right now. Now investigate that, have a close look and see, is there any time or any place or any space where you ever separate and apart from this isness? If it was, you've got to recall it. It's gone. If it hasn't happened yet, it will be. You've got to anticipate and imagine. What are you left with? Presence awareness. And that's the great perfection, is non-conceptual, ever fresh, presence awareness. The godliness of, if you like to use that term. But I don't use that term because there are different concepts in different traditions what they believe God to be and what God can do. But God is absolute. There's no you and God or me and God. There is this thing, if you like to call it, God. I tell you that God is life. God is love. If God is love, or God is love, and you know love must be God. Love must be the life. If you are the life, you must be that godliness. It's simple, it's straightforward, it's direct, it's immediate, and it's certainly non-conceptual. Easily recognised, seen through, when it's pointed to and you really look into it. For a long time it wasn't understood or grasped or seen, but here it's been recognised, it's been known for certain, and when the false comes up on it now, it's seen through pretty readily and pretty soon. And don't indulge in the past concepts and ideas anymore, because they can cause a lot of unpleasant sensations, a lot of insecurity, a lot of vulnerability, a lot of unhappiness. And Lai Wu said, why are you unhappy? He said, because everything you say, everything you think and everything you do is for yourself. And he says there isn't one. Have a look at that. This self you believe to be you is not so. That's a so-called personal self. But the person is not reality. It's the Atman self, the one self. Be what you are, not what you take yourself to be or believe yourself to be. So away you go.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
I accept. Let's go.
Very good.
You got anything? Nothing.
Nothing. I just have. Hi everyone who is online with us. We had 20 people and we had internet interruptions. It dropped off a couple of times, so sorry for that. It's the provider. And there is no questions. There are good morning messages, gratitude messages, and no questions. So
Yeah, I noticed it dropping out a couple of times.
yeah, that's
Well-
the internet. You know, I will, before I upload it on YouTube, I'll put them together in the editor, but we lost few minutes of your spiel. I mean, we didn't, but people who were online with us. I'm sorry for that. And now we got the open forum for questions, comments, sharings, disputes, anything that comes up, anything that comes strong, anything that might be helpful for you to say out loud or for anyone in the room, anything that works, anything that just feel the energy and see if there is anything that comes up, question.
I just say thanks, Bob, and like I've heard the spiel so many times, but there's always something new. It's like there's something that came across today, fresh, and it's almost like I know it's going to be said, but then it's like there is something very new in it as well. I don't know whether you said anything different, but it seems like it's different. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's the way to listen, to always hear it fresh and new. Because initially when people listen, and I can see it, I can see sometimes people who are here for the first time, they're not necessarily new to the topic. They may be open and just going with the flow straight away. But sometimes there are people who are, where I was myself and probably everyone, on that sort of an esoteric type of a path where you know everything about chakras and star signs and all that. And being in that realm of I know, you hear what Bob is saying. Oh yes, I know that. Oh, I know that one too. Oh, I agree with this one. Oh, this one I didn't hear. No, that must be bullshit. I'll reject it. So this is what initially the default mode network does. That's how we operate on default, the human pattern. And then as the guard of mind gets lower down a little bit, gets puts down, because you hear things repeatedly, so that idea that no, I didn't hear it, so it must be bullshit. That one, oh no, I did hear it. So slowly narrative stops commenting, and the less of the commentary going, the more the message actually has the chance to reach the core, reach the heart. And that is nothing repetitive about it. In the heart, it is always just like, yes. It's always the resonating, the coming home. So that's, thank you for bringing it up. That's the way to listen. That's the shining example how to hear it. And it is also a good reminder to pay attention. How is that mind operating when it is exposed to that message? How is it responding to it? Is it responding? Is it putting the guard down? Or just really knowing how the machinery functions, how it filters, rejects, accepts, likes, doesn't like. This is really interesting because no other machine you can actually know that intimately close. And it is a fascinating journey to actually see how it operates, because looking at it, you're not it anymore. Seeing how the automatic responses or preconditioned responses function in relation to absolutely anything that's happening is just seeing it as an object in consciousness. So it automatically puts in a place where you are that open field of consciousness watching the object, the mind. It is not I'm watching myself. Of course, in a certain perspective, I am the totality, so I am watching myself while I'm watching you, cats, everything. But in this particular pointer, it is really nice to just see response of the mind, not particularly fixate or pay attention, but just notice. Just notice. Because that's really liberating. You will see when it sinks deeply how automatic it is and how mechanical it is and how it really isn't you. Sometimes the voice speaks in the tone of your mom or your dad. Sometimes the narrative, which is very punitive or judgmental, it may be a voice of someone you know or not. But you can see how this is not really you speaking, how you are the knowing of what's happening. or at least not exclusively you.
I'm just really happy to accept this teaching totally. I don't think about it that much anymore. It's just get a lot of joy out of just saying yes and nothing else. Just moving on and exploring it all, just coming to terms with and having a look and seeing what it all means is a delightful thing. Kind of like a child, you know, just waiting for it all to explode, waiting for the present to be opened. And, the next thing to happen is a great place to be. You know, the mind is hopeless at understanding anything. I don't understand one thing, not one thing at all. Not at all. And yet here we are. I trust my heart. I trust the love that I see and feel for all of you. You know, that's an experience of oneness, isn't it? That's the exploration that I can bring to bear. Look at this guy here. He's fantastic, isn't he? Just in the receipt of everything that he is. Beautiful, as you all are, and as I am. Together as one thing. It's exquisite, isn't it? Welcome home, everybody.
Beautiful.
And that's it, acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful expression of that natural state in which whatever shows up, just yes, of course, you're one with life. If you weren't, you wouldn't say yes to whatever shows up. And
Yeah, rather than just simply being a victim of everything, sitting back and being punched around, trying to find your way through by grabbing that side of the coin or the other side, you know. That's hopeless. Doesn't work, does it, Bob?
We've done that long enough.
We've done that long enough. Yeah, let's relieve ourselves of the burden of doing that. Why not right now just throw it all up in the air and just say, yeah, let the chips fall as they may. And that's where the excitement in life comes too, isn't it? You know, who would want to have one of their concepts be true? If one of my concepts was absolutely true, then the universe would, all the wheels would fall off the universe immediately, wouldn't they? And who would want that? And who would want to hold the universe dead in its tracks in a concept, which we can't ever do.
Hello again, I'm Gina. I'm new to all the Advaita, or Neo-Advaita, or whatever it's called these days. And something I was reading, well, actually, being on this journey of discovery, I learned that the language we have is not developed enough for us to actually describe accurately what Bob's pointing to, because our language is set up with the dualism, you know, you can't avoid it. So even if you, as you know, if you've got to that place where you understand what's happening, you can't even use language to describe it because there's no such language developed yet to describe it. So we can only use words that are close to, like you say, you're waiting for something to happen, or I'm waiting for it to develop or to emerge, or you know, we're limited in the language that we've got, where to say something as simple as it already is and we have to move out of the way, or some word like that is the closest we can get, but even that's not the truth. So in my journey I've been complicating it by it's been thwarted with language. So I just thought it was really helpful I read it, somebody called Taft wrote it, and I read it, and it really struck me that, you know, that we just haven't developed the language yet to be able to, you know, describe what it is we're that's happening.
I don't think we're ever going to be able to develop language for it.
That's right.
But because language is inherently the problem, isn't it?
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the words, the labels and things. What we can do, I think, sorry if you disagree.
No, we develop new concepts and ideas, like let's say when the Bible was written, or scriptures that are 2 or 3 plus thousand years old, the descriptions they used then, when you modernize it, you can see what they were actually trying to say, but there wasn't the language we know now to describe that. Especially some of the scriptures in the book of John, like you're saying, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and everything that was made was God, nothing was made without God. And now when you look at what do you call it, the quantum physics, they know this word, which in the original language that scripture was written in the Greek, it meant the concept.
Yeah.
So in the beginning was the concept. I mean, that's beyond word. That's, it's beyond word. And when you put that scripture and put that word in that scripture, you can see it's describing what quantum physics has discovered. That there was this wave, and that's, that there is no solid thing. There was this wave, and that, the wave, and even back then, they found the closest word they could use was concept. And I just think that we will get to language that will describe it eventually, but as yet we haven't got there, and that's where people such as myself are having difficulty actually.
And the description will never be described anyway.
Yeah.
No matter how good
Tells
language.
Tells us that in the Insing Ming. The way is beyond language. There's no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today. It's prior to the language.
But you're totally right. They are better and worse for you.
For when you're starting out, I mean.
Absolutely. There are people who totally resonate with the language of Christianity. And they don't need non-duality language. They will dig and look, follow the love of God or God's presence within them or with them all the time. And they will arrive without much of the concepts. They may still believe in Jesus or have beliefs, but they will be resting in a natural state, surrounded by that. And there are people who have yet different language of science. But it might not be, so there's many languages that, you're right, are totally ununified. Because there is so many different machines that resonates with different style of pointing. And some language may be closer, striking home poetry or music may be closer to reach your heart than plain pointing. Who knows? But
Sorry.
Yeah.
I guess it's just, why do we need to talk about it? Like, aren't we swimming in the truth? Like, it's everywhere all the time. So then I think it's so obvious that I think there's a kind of, what's the need around being able to find the words?
Well, you're saying truth. What are you referring to when you say truth?
I'm in this room. I'm in this room now. And it's all that now can be.
But that doesn't mean anything to me. I've started out on this journey of
doesn't mean anything to me either.
Well, but for me, on my search, I need
I appreciate
words
that.
to help me be pointed in that direction. And I'm saying that when I read that even the best pointer can't. There's no language for that. For a description or for some kind of advice or some. There isn't the language been developed yet to actually make it simpler for somebody who's starting out to actually get on the first step of letting. Yeah,
I get it. I'm just trying to say we it is, it's so. I think it's so simple that you don't actually need words to find it. You know.
Yeah, but what
Yeah.
is
Quite
so
right.
simple.
I agree totally with that. Thank you.
Keep it.
I need some. Yeah. To me, that was wonderful. I heard that. I really heard what you said beautifully and simply, and it can't be put in any simpler words than that. I don't think. It's just, and what actually happens is that when you hear the truth, it becomes a song, or it becomes a poem. There's music there. There's something else that's happening. That's the only way you can describe the resonant process, I think. But don't be put off. Just keep saying that. That's wonderful.
Well, it's just my experience.
Yes, of course. It is your experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not so poetic as people like Tony and co, but so I always think of things more analytic than that. And you know, I understand that the words are the problem we got. You know, that we split things up into two bits, and then we talk about those two bits, and we get confused about all sorts of things. And there are all sorts of people that give advice. Now, one bit of advice that always helped me was what the Course in Miracles said. The Course in Miracles said, nothing means anything, okay? And it went on to say that, for example, if you don't believe this, everything in this room, through this window, whatever, means nothing, and or the meaning that I add to it, yeah? And then it goes on to say that it's not only when you look out, but when you look in, all these thoughts mean nothing either. And so if that shuts the speaking up, what you get left is with this. And that's what words do, I think. That's what explanations do. That's what thinking about it and rummaging over all the various ways of, that's what that does. It just adds confusion and more and more and more and more. And we think, I want to stop. And that's what the trick is. Stopping thinking, stopping talking, stopping investigating, all that. Yeah. Thanks.
Well said. Thank you.
But isn't that what self-inquiry is? Sorry, isn't that what self-inquiry is? To ask or observe thoughts and ask questions, and, you know, if we didn't have language, maybe we wouldn't have these problems.
I think
The language is causing a lot of the problems.
I think
Pardon?
I say it's the language that causes a lot of the
That's what I
problems.
said, maybe if we didn't have language we wouldn't have these problems. Yeah.
yeah, I think all these disciplines ask you to look
Yeah.
for yourself, not to chatter and to analyse and to work out, but to look for yourself deeply. Look within.
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah.
Like that.
But I think personally I really struggle with that too. Like, you can't stop the mind, and so the mind can drive you crazy, and trying to stop the mind can drive you crazy, and like, that's it as well. The mind is it. So rather than, it's okay for it to be there. I mean, it's wanting to protect you, it's trying to plan for the future, it's trying to learn from the past. But for me personally, just accepting that that's part of it as well. Sometimes it will be noisy, sometimes it will be unpleasant, sometimes it's just annoying, but it still is what is. It's just what is.
What is?
Yeah, beautiful. Did you want to say something, Bob? No? Did you want to say something, Dean? Go on.
So the word is not the thing.
Yeah.
This is really simple. Like, it's not really the problem with language. I don't see a problem with language at all, because it's just not. It's a word. Bob talks about it beautifully in the spiel. Take the word fire, take the word water. You know, and he goes into all that. Like, the words aren't really a problem. Like, it's a belief in them. And I don't know. Like, I don't know. You just start to see like the words are like a vibrating pattern of energy, like you say so clearly, like it's sound. Sound is energy, but this chair is energy. Everything is energy, and it's what's the difference between a word and a chair, or a cat, or a floor, and it's all the whole play of energy. And I don't know, like sometimes it all collapses, and like the scene in the Matrix where there's just the symbols, the green code. Everything just the words, the objects, everything is just the code, just buzzing around.
But something got you to that point.
Oh, there's this really important word that I heard once. I'm only joking.
A question or a seeking or a pointing.
It was the understanding or the realisation that it doesn't work that way, and I can't resolve it with words, or with figuring it out through that kind of methodology or system.
Yeah, I think I maybe have miscommunicated what the thrust of my statement was all about.
No.
I'll leave it there until I know how to communicate it properly. But there was something that was said, and I loved this. It was, I don't know if I got it correct, but nothing can trouble me except my own imagination.
Yeah.
And for example, I telling myself I'm depressed, I feel this certain set of feelings which come from associated thoughts. Before words, there were no thoughts, therefore no symptoms of misery, anxiety, depression. And so before language, we wouldn't have been lying there as little toddlers thinking I'm depressed or anything. So is it true that a child would only feel those two basic inherent fears, which is the fear of falling and loud noises, and everything else they're just at peace and enjoying their experience of, rather being attacked by thoughts that create feelings that then create concerns?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just that, you always get the result of your mind too. Mind is an extension, if you like, in limitation of, or in separation. It's a representative of everything in separation, if you like, or awareness, a representative of awareness. It's the image of awareness. It's not the awareness itself, in a sense. But we have the capability through our mind to experience everything that the mind entertains instantaneously. So, and that's the problem. That's the problem in itself. Is that we can't find an answer through the circumscription of the mind. We have to release it at some point, and because the mind is all about looking for answers, and the answers are always dual. They're always continually bifurcating on you, splitting up. So you never get anywhere. All you get is the result of your own mind, which is questioning. Right? That's what mind does. It questions itself, questions the world, questions the universe. So in that sense, it's perfect, in as much that you're getting exactly what you want in mind, but being just a representative.
I love what you said the other week. The very tool I'm using to try and discover it is the last thing I should be using.
Can you say it again?
Yeah, you said to me, the very tool that I'm using to try and work this out is the last tool that I should be using. It's a point.
Tool for the job.
Yeah.
That's why I say one other thing.
Yeah.
And I'll pass it up. Lesson 108 in the Course in Miracles is as I give giving and receiving are one in truth. That's a very good lesson, because if you look at that, you see that as you give, you receive instantaneously, right? In the same measure. In other words, we're both experiencing the giving and receiving together. That's one thing. Do you see the unity of that in the instant that you entertain it? You don't?
Bob wants to say something.
Yeah.
Everything and nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing is everything and everything is nothing.
That's right. Yeah. So it's all happening right in the moment of the conception of mind. The mind is just these thoughts anyway, a stream of thoughts.
Yeah.
There's nothing outside of that, except,
Yeah.
and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you like.
Yeah.
So as long as you remain in there, you've got to have a look at something else somehow in order to break free. And nobody knows how that happens. I don't understand how that happens, but it does happen. You're going to get dragged in. If you start turning in the right direction, you'll get dragged in somehow by the scruff of the neck, screaming backwards. But perhaps I always used to say that you entered into this backwards because you're always doing it for the wrong reasons. And then suddenly something happens and you're away.
There's a quote ascribed to Francis of Assisi: "That which you seek is that which is doing the seeking, doing the looking."
Yeah. Yeah, it's only one.
Yeah, and I get that. It's how to be there. I get that. I get what's been described and the best way anybody could communicate it.
Bob wants to say something?
Instead of trying to be it, try and not be.
Yeah, good point.
That's
Not
Yeah.
be.
Embrace the paradox. The one who is trying to find it is the one who is seeking. But also, when you ask Dean, how did you arrive at that conclusion that everything is just falling,
Yeah.
just movement of energy?
Yeah.
That is the question the mind asks, and it's totally valid question for the mind. How do I get there? How do I get that? How
Yeah.
do I understand that?
Yeah.
But the paradox is that understanding is present right here, right now. But the I, who tries to grasp it, the I is imagined.
Yeah.
That I is the very veil
Yeah.
which prevents that from shining forth.
Yeah.
So when you stop that I, meaning the narrative, the thinking, the relating,
Yeah.
Bob has this question, what's wrong with right now if I don't think about it? Just see for one moment what is wrong. Where is the depression? Where is the past? Where is everything? When you just stop the thinking and just try not to be, like he says. And this is it. This is natural state. But then the mind comes in and says, no, this is not it. This is too ordinary. This is too blunt. This is nothing. It's not attractive. It's not pleasant. It's not enlightenment. Dean seemed excited when he was talking about, I don't feel any excitement. Well, because the mind is subtly still there.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a story that might
Sorry.
help. I mean, I came to this journey through pain, so. But
I'm in my 4 years on the bench, so to speak.
Yeah. So anyway, a few years ago, I had terrible shoulder injuries, which I was slow to do anything about, and I couldn't sleep. So I was quite delirious. So I decided I couldn't lie down for longer than about an hour or two because my shoulders were hurting so much. So I thought, well, meditating will be the next best option in terms of getting some rest. And so I set myself up in the corner of my room on my meditate because I was more comfortable sitting up. So sort of in desperation, and I would meditate and hopefully I would fall asleep. So I set up so I would kind of, because I was sleeping about an hour a night. I'd go to bed at 12 and at 1 o'clock I would wake up in pain. So anyway, so I sat in the corner of my room, really not trying to meditate, but trying to sleep. So my goal was not to do the practice or to do correct meditation. The goal was to fall asleep. But I was in so much pain I couldn't fall asleep. And I had just a torrent of words about my situation, But after, because this went on I couldn't get the treatment for my shoulders, took about 4 or 5 months, to get. And I didn't, anyway, it's a long story. I could probably have, if I was smart, I would have hurried that up. But I sat every night like this, trying to fall asleep with these words, just every imaginable negative. But it's sometimes the shiningness of here and now the being alive and being awake just was there, you know, in this pain, you know, and in the even the words, like the words were just flowing, all the wrong words were there too. But I noticed, if you can hold this, I noticed that shining awareness of a lifefulness was still there, even though the words were shooting by. It was behind. It was like the, you know, so it was still there.
Yeah.
And it sort of somehow I saw that in those months of just but it was in the pain and in the wrong words. It was the opposite to because I'd come from a Zen tradition, so I was perfect meditation for years and years. But and I can really see it more clearly when in this pain and in the wrong, I was abusing the pain. I was completely the wrong attitude. But in moments of that, actually, it was the greatest teaching ever. Where this here and now I was undeniably here.
And the pain went and stuff.
Oh, the pain was still there, and the word was still there. So that's what I meant by the swimming in the truth. The truth is the truth. Is the truth. Is the truth.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's,
beautiful.
It's hard, I didn't understand. I mean, it took that extreme. I'm a pretty sort of stubborn, pig-headed person, So it was the other way. Instead of kind of getting all perfect and getting all the words right and getting everything right and doing the retreats, it took actually the pain and almost this. I caught the words because it was months of it, and I was deliriously tired too. So I wasn't in a healthy place. I was in a really bad place. It was interesting, but I saw that the teaching came present in that. It was the other way around.
So you got a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah, in those moments, 3:30 in the morning, trying to sleep.
But you're not living it now.
Well, it is.
Okay.
It always is.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like that fable of the. It is in spite of yourself. It's got nothing to do. You don't have to work it out. That's what I think. Anyway, that's my experience. That's why I say it's my experience. Is that that was like the worst time of my life. So anyway.
You want to say something?
Hi, my name is Shanti. No, I mean, in continuation of what you just said, it's in intense pain and moment. How do you get to that point where you know that that's not you, physical, mental, emotional, you're suffering so much, so many things happening to you externally. How do you get to that point where I can be still, this is not me, this will pass, So because sometimes you don't have that faith that things are going to get better when things are at rock bottom. So it's and you plan so well, like life is going to go so rosy, so beautiful, this is how and everything falls apart and everything, like physical, mental, emotional. And you go through that so long that becomes like, is this going to be me? Is this going to be my identity? How do I move away from that and go to a higher perspective and see that, I learn from it when it's prolonged, it's really hard. It's really hard to get to that point where stillness at 3:30 in the morning. I try that. But sometimes the situation outside is so overwhelming and consuming.
That was my experience for most of the time, So I'm not saying it was sort of. It's hard to say. I didn't. So my experience was overwhelming. It was. The words were negative, but I could. The stills just, I can't explain it, but the shimmering kind of nature of reality was there too. It was there as well. Because I wasn't trying to think, I wasn't trying to work it out. I was just trying to get through the time. And I actually, and I don't have any advice either. I'm not saying be in pain and. So that's just my story, and maybe there's something in that for someone,
Can I just say something? Just Just today, when the 2 phone calls, those 2 phones went off, I got the giggles. And growing up in my home, if you got the giggles, there was a lot of trauma and abuse, I'd feel really guilty and I couldn't laugh. But today, as the phones went off, I didn't feel guilty about laughing. They just happened out of the blue, and it's okay to have a little giggle along the way.
Beautiful.
I sat on a sofa between 10 to 4, and I slept 1 hour and a half as well. And the presence, while I was experiencing pain and everything that you mentioned, was similar, but the presence was too outside of the body to be able to do something about it or maintain it. It's just too independent of the body and the mind, the physical and psychological body. I'm speaking to carpet, and I don't know why I cannot increase my volume, and this is a problem that I'm having a few weeks. I'm the biggest me in this sitting, in this gathering, beautiful sitting, and I'm not proud of it. I'm simply precise and honest. Thank you for nothing.
Find some bigger me's.
Thank you for the honesty. And yes, it does feel this way. I remember feeling this way. Because the pain was so huge, the me was so pronounced and so real, it does feel so real. That's why there is no prescription how to get there, because that me that feels so real, it will never get anywhere. It is a phantom, it is imagined, it can never get the truth. The thing is, what recognizes that me is not real is not the me. Me never recognizes anything. Me is a construct made of thoughts, memories, concepts, ideas, pictures. That one is dead, and that one is blind. That one is insentient. It just feels, it's a costume. It feels like it is me. It feels like I believe this is who I am. But that's just the belief, like Dean made this distinction, the words are not the problem, concepts are not the problem. The fact that they are being believed, that there is identification with them. So the recognition that this me, this suffering thing, is not real, is not for the me. The I never recognizes anything. The recognition comes from that open space of consciousness, which, when the I doesn't steal all of the attention, it already knows that. So there is no prescription how to get there. There are descriptions, and if descriptions somehow move the heart, resonate, if description resonates, that trust relaxes you a little bit. That's how it is. And in that relaxation, spontaneous, natural relaxation, some of that attention shift away from that tight construct, that tight costume of constant relating. And that free attention is free. That attention is free. It is not bound. But I would like also include people who are with us online. And British Julia says, the appearance is baffling and beautiful. Yes, there is a possibility to see the world this way. Of course, if there is a lot of external challenges and there is an intense suffering and fear and the uncertainty and depression, it is very, very hard to see that the appearance is baffling and beautiful. But just rest assured that there is a way to see it. And if you persist in looking into it, it means that you just deep down know there is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of experiencing the world, not through that interpreter that makes everything tight and personal and aching and painful. There is another way. So that's not a hope, that's a certainty, because there is enough people in this room who can state that with their lives. Look at Bob. And I'd like to include some others. Yale says, it's always amazing for me to witness how, as you go further along on the path, how easy it becomes to let things go, to just accept things as they are, as they happen, and keep it moving. To not ask why and for what. So liberating to just let it be as is. Thank you, Bob and Kat. How beautifully said. To just go along, let go of the stories. Like Cole was mentioning before, nothing has meaning. Nothing that ever happens to you, for you. No, this is just added story. Nothing means anything unless you believe it does, and that belief binds you, puts you into prison. And like Yale says, just as you go along, it naturally, those meanings, those stories, those conclusions are being discarded. They're being seen through. Oh, it's just another blah, blah, blah. And life is a mystery. You think you understand what or why? No, you don't understand anything. There's nothing to be understood. It's a mystery. It's a miracle. It's infinite amount of factors playing and dancing, and nothing can be understood about it. Stories can be told, many, but they're just stories. And then Jane says, can Bob please talk on? In the beginning was the Word was God, so God is the Word. Would you like to?
Yeah, well, when did you begin? When you were about a couple of years old when you learnt words. You were living before that, but you didn't know anything about it. You were still alive. How could you say you were born or anything at all without the word? And then the same when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, living in paradise, everything was all right. But they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They learnt words. And that was the one. We divide.
And I have Tanya. Tanya says, good morning. When I look for the separate self, me, all I find is sensations, this body and thoughts. I can't find a self. Could it be that simple?
Yes.
I can't find a self. Could it be that simple? Yes. And to keep looking until it is absolutely clear there is no me? Yes. All the me seems to be is a pattern of thoughts that have been believed in. But believed in by who? Doubts and resistance appear to there being no ownership of the body. So, can you say something about this? You want to say something about this? Believed by who? It's a software. It's a program. The whole machinery is designed, and as I think Michael was saying, all that narrative is here to serve, is to help, to plan the future, to protect the body, to gain more pleasure, to put you on the ladder somewhere in the park. And it is a software that does it, facilitates the whole thing by relating to the imagined self. And having the imagined self, having a story about the self, it can connect with other selves. That is how the program operates. So who believes? Nobody. It's like you have the app on your phone. Is that app actually listening to what you say, the app translating? No. It's the app. It's mechanical. It's a software. It's a program. You see if there is anyone, if you find anyone who believed that there is a self. If you don't, well, that's your answer. Keep looking. If you don't find. And I remember Bill, our friend who used to come to the meetings a lot. He has this beautiful little story about the termites under the floor. He had a really, really nice and clear and funny way to explain things to be remembered forever. He was building a house and he looked for the termites. He didn't find any. And then he looked again and he didn't find any. And then he got the specialist and they looked together. They didn't find any. They sprayed just to be sure. There still weren't any termites. And eventually he just shook his head and, the hell with that. I know there are no termites. Why do I have to keep looking? And then he relaxed and he never needed to look again. And there still were no termites. There still is no self. You can look 100 times if you need to, if you moved to. You're not doing it. It's still life moving you. But then at some point it naturally relaxes Do you look if there is enemy, Bob? I don't think so. Do you keep checking if there is enemy? Nah, didn't cross my mind in years either. It's just too obvious. Like, what are you looking for? There isn't any. It's certain. It's absolutely certain.
And that's, as I said, that way away says, why are you unhappy? Because everything you say, everything you think, and everything you do is for yourself. He says there isn't one. No personal self at all.
Nonetheless, I'd be checking if I was.
Yeah. And Jane says, there are no answers in the mind. Absolutely. All this is created between me thought and the response to the other person, place or thing thought. What Bob talks about is unfixated awareness. And Jane also says the I or me narrative is always naming and claiming. Yeah, that's nice, beautiful thing Bob says. Watch the mind. See how it works. See how it operates. Learn about the machinery. While doing so, you're free. Yes, Gina?
Did I get that correct when the person said retaining, well, these are my words, so retaining the self is like keeping an app to assist you to navigate life and communicate with others. So we're not trying to get rid of self.
We don't have any choice.
No, that's what I'm... Well, this is what I mean by communicating to find out things. Like, you know, that would be a question, you know.
Yes.
Is it about getting rid of...
No.
But you can't get rid of and...
No, there is no you to get rid or to gain or to discard. None of that can be done.
Yeah.
There is nothing to do. It's only plain recognition. Those softwares may be helpful.
Yeah.
Leave them all as they are.
Yeah, well, that helps me understand more about what the whole purpose of it is, rather than trying to deny it exists or rub it out of existence, or do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So thank you to whoever that was who said that.
Thank you. I actually didn't get there yet, so I'll actually read through. And now we have Ram, who says there are certain languages, like Sanskrit, that the words that point perhaps more succinctly at reality, and these words are almost untranslatable in English. But even those words can still only point. But at what? Try to grasp, this is a quote from Nisargadatta, try to grasp it with the concept and you fail. And you are bound to fail, says Nisargadatta. And Bob usually finishes the concept because it is the non-conceptual awareness. And Kathy says, the mind creates the abyss and heart crosses it. I love that quote from Nisargadatta. Beautiful. Thank you, Kathy. And Zulma says, getting rid of it is the belief that there is someone to achieve. Yes, you can't gain it, can't lose it, because there is no you. And see, this is another paradox of language. We say there is no self, not to deny, because the next thing we say, we go to Sofia, have a cake, or whatever. It's
Exactly.
yeah, there is a cake today, so whoever want to come to Sofia's, Peter made a cake, a Polish cheesecake. So it isn't really about, denying the fact that there is a sense of location in the body. That would be bullshit. Of course there is a sense, the sensations are here. I can't feel the sensations in Bob's body.
Yeah.
Well, I can feel it in the fingers, but not in the
Yes,
system.
yeah.
So that's functional sort of, and even in the language, I go, I walk, I feel, it's functional. We don't deny that there is a usefulness.
But the analogy of an app is really helpful to me.
I'm glad.
To separate the two.
Yes, it is. That's, see, watching the mind when you see how it operates, when you see the old scripts, even like, you know, we don't dig into bringing out childhood traumas and regurgitate the victim story, but you will see sometimes when those scripts just play out, when you get emotionally dysregulated and yes, and it just shows itself off how that mind has been conditioned to arrive at that responses, and that's fascinating, because once you watch, you're free, you are the consciousness in which it unfolds and shows itself.
And having that up idea helps frame it in context, because you wouldn't look at your phone app and give it a personality. It's just functional, it's doing this job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think when those patterns come up, a good question to ask is am I diminished in some way by having this pattern? I would suggest not. It's like I'm not. If I cut my right arm off, for example, am I diminished in any?
So which I are you talking? I was referring to the I who I think I am.
Well,
that is totally diminished by my thinking. Yes.
I think they're both one and the same thing, really. They are that in the end run. Because the I that you think you are is just awareness in separation or in limitation. But it's still awareness, isn't it? And just one thing, if you chop off your right arm, you're still you, aren't you? Have you been diminished in any way? Not really. You're still there, aren't you? And isn't there a sense of self that's whole still? If I chop off your right arm or chop off your right leg or remove this and that, whatever, you're still there in your entirety, aren't you? And that's that's getting at who you really are. And the same as appropriate to that sort of questioning can be appropriate to your conditioned responses to things. Even though you have a conditioned response, are you in any way altered by that? Changed or diminished or whatever? And the answer has got to be no. It's not really.
Just one practice that might help others that I've been doing recently is like, do you know what the next sound is going to be? Do you have any idea what the next sound they're going to hear is going to be?
Or the next word.
Or the next thought.
Depends on the gas in the oven.
So there's something that's like there that's silent for the sound to come in. And it's the same with the thought. I have no idea what our next thought's going to be. But something is there, like something empty that it comes into. And as I think Dean was saying, it's a belief that grabs onto it that makes it into something. But so just like waiting for a sound, now wait for a thought. And you've got thoughts of I, that's just a thought. That's just another thought. So what is there that's waiting for that thought? And you can't put that into words, you just...
That's the I that I am, really am. Yeah,
but it's even before saying that, so you just wait. What's there when you just wait?
That's a beautiful, beautiful spin. I love when Bob asks this question, what's your next thought going to be? And it just leaves you baffled because you don't know. But sound is a nice spin on it. What's the next sound? Because that is actually something that is really grounding you in a very, very present, because you have to open other senses, not just exclusively focus in the thinking, but also open up to the sounds, the tram passing or the car or the bird or whatever. It's a really nice little spin. Thank you for that. And I have a question, I have a word from Tanya. She says, thank you, Bob and Kat. Definitely I'm not doing the looking. There is a movement to look. I can see how the looking will drop away all by itself. So grateful for the pointers. No one is speaking, thinking, feeling, doing or looking, investigating. That is seen. Wonderful. Wonderful. And on that note, we are over time, and thank you everyone. And
Thanks everyone. Thanks Bob and Kat.
Thank you.